Good evening, Norcal Carters. This is Jason, and it's another Norcal Monday, and it is July 11th. And tonight we have a bunch of special guests. We are covering the OTK brands, OTK chassis. So if you have a Q&A, a technical question, a comment about the OTK brand, you can chime in with our panel just either on Facebook or YouTube. You could chat live, and we will do our best to answer those questions for you. But a couple of quick housekeeping items. Give me one moment here. Races coming up this weekend. You can also find this on norcalcarters.com. Click on the events and go to our calendar. Prairie City Karting. It is our 4-stroke race weekend. Prairie City Karting, 4-stroke race weekend, pckarting.com. Also, Northern Nevada Kart Club. They have their kart race, and they've been doing the live stream stuff. So nnkcreno.com. And in a couple of weeks, Ashley and I will be out at Sonoma for Rock Sonoma. Once again, we will be live streaming. If you missed the last live stream, we had to do it audio only. We had our video crew ended up with the flu that was going around here in California. So we will be back on YouTube July 30th for the Rock Sonoma races. And going a little further ahead, I'm going to mention the NCK Road Racing bunch. So the NCK Road Racing guys, they're only doing 4 or 5 races this year. So I'm trying to plug them as much as I can. They are also a sponsor of the website, and they are racing at the big track at Buttonwillow on August 13th. So again, that's NCK Road Racing, and they will be on the big track, Buttonwillow, on August 13th. And next up, Ashley, why don't you take over here?
All right. Hey, NorCal. What's up? It's the NorCal Carters chick here. All right. So we have some shout outs here. Let's do this. Shout outs. Okay. So we had NorCal Carters out of state this weekend. We got Road America, where some of our friends went up there, including our friend Chase Hand, who was just here last weekend, coming out with a 3rd place finish out of, I want to say 50, but I know that there was more. And I'm not just saying that to make him sound cool. There really was that many. And then also we had the KPX out at our friend Northern Nevada Kart Club in Reno. That was great. Maybe Austin can give us a little breakdown when we get there. So again, talking about shout outs. Over the weekend, we did lots of shout outs on our social media. Hey, if you want us to tag you, tag us so we know where you're at. All right. So let's bring up our co-host this evening, Austin from Speedsense. Let's see, where are you at? Oh, right here. Here we go. You're muted. Here you go.
How's it going, guys?
Welcome. Introduce yourself, Austin. Give us your best sales pitch, who you are, who your company is, where your home track is, and what you did this past weekend.
So my name is Austin Elliot. I own and run Speedsense Motorsports. We are based in Sacramento. We're very close to Prairie City. That's our local track. We go out there all the time for testing and races. Just this last weekend, we were up in Reno for an event up there, and we were racing that event and also testing for the Grand Nationals coming up. That's being held in October 10th and 11th in Reno, Nevada. So we are working to gain some speed there. But the weekend went pretty good overall. Yeah.
And tell us how you're affiliated with OTK.
So I am a dealer for the OTK Esprit chassis. I am also a dealer for the other brands in the 4-stroke category. So considering Tony Kart, Esprit, Cosmic, the Red Speed chassis, and all of the other brands. So yeah, we support the brand fully.
All right, we'll get into the Tony Kart family once we introduce the rest of our guests. So let's start with Derek.
Hey guys, it's Derek here from Power Republic in Australia. We're a Tony Kart dealer here on the Gold Coast. I've been racing for, a long time now. And the business has been here for about 10 years. Got our own YouTube channel on Power Republic where we do a lot of how-to videos on how to fix and repair your own kart, mostly Tony Karts, but occasionally other brands. But also too, like their information sort of cross-pollinates across the brands anyway. So yeah, they're sort of real helpful videos for everyone. And we've got a Facebook and Instagram page. And yeah, it's been going off this year. Well, over the last 18 months, we've been really pumping that up. So that's been going really good too. So if you want to check us out, you can check out Power Republic on Instagram and Facebook as well. Our home track is Ipswich, which is about 120 k's away, 80 miles for you guys. So we've got a bit of a trek every time we go to the track. But we do it pretty much every week, 48, maybe 50 times a year. So we're definitely at the track a lot. I love go-karting, mostly just running my own team full of, we've got a transporter with about 7 drivers that we take to the track each week. And it's the same crew. And we go 3 weeks out of every month. So we've got a full schedule of karting. And that's probably why we haven't been doing the YouTube videos as much this year. But we hope to be getting that one back up on track ASAP.
All right. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Next, we'll go with Cliff.
You're on mute. There you go.
Go ahead.
How's it going, everybody? Cliff, Pure Karting, Phoenix, Arizona. Longtime OTK user, dealer, real loyalist, honestly. Now I'm step back a little bit from a day-to-day basis in the karting world from a business standpoint. It's kind of something I just get to use the product now, and it's actually been great. It's opened my eyes to how the product's working even more so than when I was just supporting it from a customer basis. So yeah, everything is happy for me in the OTK world. Really excited about the product every day. Happy to help anybody that needs help as well. A lot of focus in shifter. I'm racing shifter currently myself, just as a hobby and in the masters category. So I like OTK, and yeah, always willing to help everybody.
So Cliff, how do you pronounce your last name?
So in America, we say Kujala. It's a Finnish-based name. I think I've ran into some people from Finland. They might say a little slightly different, like Kujala. But yeah, Kujala is how we pronounce it in America.
Perfect. I had to ask.
Jason's notorious for mispronouncing names. All right.
Cliff and I go way back.
He knows how to say it. He's heard it enough.
All right, here we go. Last but not least, we have Mike Beeny.
I've been racing since the early 90s. In about 97, started working at a local kart shop here that sold Tony karts, among other brands at the time. In 1999, we formed M Squared Racing, which is still a company that I work at every day, even to this day. We were really known for shifter kart racing for a very long time, but over the last 10 to 12 years, we've done a lot of single speed racing as well with all OTK products. So it's just been a product line that, we've had other lines throughout the years, CRG, Burrell, Arrow. They've all been great, but nothing to this day compares to the OTK line. And that's why it's been our primary line for the last 22 years.
All right.
And where's your home track, Mike?
So we race at the Utah Motorsports campus, formerly Miller Motorsports Park, which is about 30 minutes straight west of where our shop is at in Salt Lake City, Utah.
All right.
Perfect.
So we got everyone from everywhere. We got Sacramento, we got Australia, Phoenix, Utah. Ask away.
Fresno.
Go ahead. Was that
Oh,
you?
me?
Well, were you talking?
No, I just said Fresno. You forgot to mention your hometown.
Oh, oh yeah. Yeah. Okay. And then, so let's jump in. Let's talk OTK brands. So for somebody who's brand new, who hears OTK and expects maybe a green cart, and then they see a red cart, and then they see a purple cart. So let's talk about this. What do we have? Austin, maybe you want to explain?
Yeah, so OTK stands for Original Tony Kart. And I mean, that's the first of the line. And since then, I mean, they have produced multiple brands, as you can see on the screen here, the Tony Kart, Cosmic, Esprit, and there's plenty of them out there. In all honesty, they're exactly the same to one another. They just are a different color. You have people out there that like red rather than green, or green over purple. It's mainly just a preference, and then it's also a way for teams to kind of designate one brand that they can stick behind and really push. So you won't have a Tony Kart team competing over with a Cosmic team. So it's one way for teams to kind of separate themselves, but also be on the same product.
So, just since you're our NorCal expert here, what do we commonly see in NorCal?
Commonly in NorCal, we see a lot of Tony Karts, and now that I've been established here, a lot of Esprits. The Esprits are starting to really come on the scene. Every now and then you'll see some Cosmics and some Red Speeds, but those are mainly the two focus cards.
Yeah. All right. So this is an Esprit. Maybe you could tell us about this one.
Who is that?
Sorry.
That was me. Sorry about that. Yeah, it was the air gun going in the background.
Oh, there you go. And here I thought it was Cliff with the espresso machine.
Yeah, sorry about that. My bad.
All right, Austin, go ahead.
What was the question?
The Esprit. Sorry, go down, Jason. There you go. The Esprit chassis. Tell us about it. That's not the chassis. That's the Esprit suit. There you go.
It's orange.
Yep, it's orange. You were kind of breaking up there for a second. I didn't quite catch the question.
Oh, tell us about the Esprit chassis.
So yeah, I mean, as you can see, it's orange. But I mean, the products on it are the same as any other OTK chassis, as I was explaining a little bit earlier. But I know that the frame itself, I mean, it's a pretty vibrant orange, and it actually, I mean, in my opinion, everybody's got their bias, but I think it's one of the best looking carts out there when it's put together right. The Esprit, I mean, it's not as popular as the two, Tony Kart and Cosmic, but it is right there with them.
It's way better looking than the EOS.
And then,
well, again, it's just preference. I mean, Nash Motorsports, they run EOS all the time, and it goes with their look. They have that baby blue look to them, and it all flows. So they're able to accommodate it really well.
Yeah, I've noticed with Nash, the first thing they do is put their own decal kit on it.
Okay, so when you have it, so each Tony Kart kind of family has their own models, right? So majority of them are going to have like the full size cart, the cadet cart, and then are there kid carts? Do they get smaller? Like
yes. So for a while they actually only produced Tony Kart in the kid cart category, but recently they've actually branched out and started making the other brands. for those. I believe that started happening about 2 years ago, if I'm not mistaken, maybe 3 years. But you have Kid Kart, you have the rookie chassis in the cadet category, then the essentially full size tag cart, the 401R, and then you have your shifter cart. And I know in the shifter and the 401R, the tag cart, you can actually get different size tubing. So you can either do the 30 or the 32 mil tubing. Those are usually on special request. Not a lot of people use them, but they are available.
All right, question for Cliff. Cliff, have you tried any of the other like brands against each other, and do you have a favorite?
I definitely agree. The brands are the same.
Okay.
There's a preference in color. I've been with Tony Kart for so long that I'm certainly bleed green. But if I needed to drive a different chassis, I wouldn't have a problem because I know the quality is the same. When you know the manufacturer for so long, you know that, they put their heart and soul in everything they produce, and it doesn't matter what color it is. They're going to give you a great product. It's certainly one of the best products in the karting industry. So you don't have to have any fear which one you go with. Like Austin said, it gives the dealers a chance to distinguish themselves as a service, honestly, because the product is good. It doesn't matter which one you choose. You go with the people you're comfortable with and people that you have the same mentality. Every region can have people working in different ways. So it gives OTK that ability to really sell to everybody. So it works out quite well. So I don't think there's any fear.
All right, so we do have a question coming in from our friend Steve Pugo. All right, do you find that on the rear brakes at master's weight that it's better to run the bigger rear disc to prevent brake fade?
I'll start with this one. There definitely are times when that larger rear rotor is going to be helpful, and then there's going to be times where it's going to hurt you as well. There's been events where we've done, say at Infineon, and Austin will have plenty of information on this as well. When we'd run the tic-tac-toe section, the large rear rotor would hit the ground and you would break it, and so that wasn't good. It's definitely a rotor that has a lot more power. It's a little bit touchier. I've run at master's weight multiple times in single speed category and have not had a problem with a lot of heat in the rear brake, but I haven't run across all of the different situations that a master's driver that is competing regularly would have. So, I think if I think back to about 2010 or so, when the Buddy Rice and those guys were doing a lot, I think they were using the large rear rotor quite a bit. But since then, with the newer caliper, I don't think it's been as necessary to do, because I think the new caliper takes a lot of the heat out of the pad.
All right.
Yeah, I can definitely agree with that. With the newer style of brake pads and calipers, the larger rotor, as Mike had said, it can definitely hit the ground if you're on a track that's either really bumpy or like Sonoma. Maybe not now since they've changed it, but Sonoma used to jump a curb and you could slam down right on that rotor and sometimes break it in half. And that's like the biggest concern of it. I've noticed more of a difference with those when you go to a track that has a lot of hard braking, going really fast and into hard braking. That's when you tend to have a better feel for it. Now, if you're in a really fast-paced track where you're not using the brakes a lot, then I don't think it's as much of an advantage there.
So, quick technical question: when you guys are talking about brake rotor size, What is the standard that comes on the cart, and what is the oversized you guys are referring to in millimeters?
So the standard rotor is 180 millimeters. The bigger brake rotor is 210.
Okay. And then who was chiming in right before I cut you off?
I was just going to comment that luckily, I think the larger rotor has become less of an important factor because at least when you're talking about the Rock series, the Levanto tire is a great medium compound tire that you have grip. So when you have grip, obviously you can brake hard, but you don't have to brake quite as much anymore. So you just don't have to slow the car down as much. You have cornering speed. You can use the chassis. You can really rely on the chassis to slow you down. So we don't have as much necessity maybe for the large brake rotor as we used to. So that's something to also consider, that when the track is good and the tire is working well, you don't quite need the braking force, because the Masters, as the person Steve that proposed the question knows, so you carry more weight, you have to stop that weight. But luckily the tire is quite good nowadays, so you don't have to stop as much.
Perfect.
All right. Thanks,
And then
guys. Okay, so
sorry, Ashley.
real quick, we're gonna do a shout out for our D-Power friend. I'm sorry, Power Republic. I'm a big fan of your YouTube videos. I watched several of them to fix my cart. Thanks. All right. Ask any questions if you have any questions, Philip. Okay, here we go. Next, we have Moya Rensport. Can you guys talk about the difference between running a dedicated 4-stroke chassis versus a converted 2-stroke frame for competing in LO 206 at junior weight class?
So before we jump into that, let's see. Derek, you're on mute.
Oh.
There you
Oops. Yeah, that's on me. Yeah.
So you got to give us a little education here. So you had a shout out from Philip Sturmer. Dr.
Yeah,
Power,
thanks,
a
Bill.
big fan of your YouTube videos.
Yeah, stoked. Thanks heaps for watching the videos. Yeah, wicked. Glad you're finding them helpful. I just had to change locations. There's a bit of workshop noise in the background blowing up the mic, so I'm standing out in the truck. And I was going to say on the brake thing, our go-karts here have come standard with the bigger brake rotor for as long as I can remember. And the only time we use the smaller 180 is if the drivers are overweight and they're trying to save a few kilos, because you can take out the little brake spacer, and also the disc is a little bit smaller and a little bit lighter. But other than that, we run the big disc on all our senior cards. And I've even noticed on this year's KZ frames, they come with the bigger rotor now too, whereas they used to come with the smaller 180 on the rear. I don't know why that is, but that's just something I've noticed.
And then
What tire?
are
You guys running?
Oh, go ahead.
So this year they changed to the, I think you guys call them Levante, is it?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's called a LeConte tire here, which I think it's the same in Italy. I think it's the same tire. And there's 3 different types of compounds. So there's a soft, a medium, and a slightly harder, but the slightly harder is still really soft anyway. And yeah, the really soft tire for the KZ frame, and the medium grip for the tag, and the sort of harder entry-level tire for the entry-level classes like the juniors and stuff, yeah.
And then while we have you on the big screen here, we have a couple questions coming in about some 4-stroke stuff. Are you guys running it down there in Australia? Are you running the dedicated 4-stroke chassis versus
We did
the
have
converted
a
2-stroke?
The converted 2-stroke chassis would probably work pretty good. I'd probably even hit the Nordics 101 frame, because they run on a really hard tyre, the 4-stroke guys, just to get that sort of cart to rotate a little bit better. But that's just a guess. I've never really tried it or tested it. There's a 30mm Tony kart. I think it used to be called an ST30, which is a 30mm frame with a straight bar behind the seat, with a 40mm axle and 17mm front stub axles and some cheaper aluminium sort of entry-level componentry. And that's what we bought in to use as 4-stroke carts here, but it's not really that well supported up here in Southeast Queensland, so I don't have a lot of experience to talk about which carts are better. Maybe one of you other guys that runs the 206 would be able to pick this one up?
Yeah, I mean, we do a lot of 206 stuff, and primarily most of our customers are going to go with the premier level chassis as opposed to the 4-stroke chassis. And there's a few reasons for that. I think the biggest being that given the fact that Tony Kart sells so many units of the premier single speed chassis for 2-stroke racing, it puts the secondary market is so huge for that chassis, and the 4-stroke engine works really, really well on it. And so you see guys picking up, 2 or 3 race old national level 2-stroke chassis for a pretty good deal, and then putting the the 206 4-cycle engine on it, and it's just a package that works really, really well. So if I've got somebody that comes in the shop and they say, I want to build a brand new Briggs and Stratton kart, then we will talk about the option of the 4-cycle chassis. But most of the time they come in with their mindset on the higher end chassis, because the price difference is just not that much. And so we don't have a lot of experience with the 4-stroke chassis, mostly with the higher end chassis on the 4-stroke engine.
And the higher end chassis is so versatile. You can run it on sticky tires, soft tires, hard tires, any sort of engine, and it always seems to work no matter which track we go to anyway.
Yeah, it doesn't even really matter. I mean, I sell used shifter chassis for 4-cycle usage. Like, that's honestly, like, I use chassis for shifter. I sell them as 4-cycle chassis. And that's the beauty of the product, right? Like, it just works all the time, no matter where you put it.
Yeah.
So we've been doing a lot of 4-stroke racing here in Northern California. It's one of our biggest markets. And at the beginning of the year, we started running on the 4-stroke chassis. Before then, we would use the standard 401, and you can set them up to be very competitive. I mean, we won a lot of races on the 401 chassis. But now that we are working with this new 4-stroke chassis, and it's actually in the middle of a development phase. So next year, they're going to be making some changes on that chassis. Based off of some of the testing that a few of us are doing. But from what I have noticed between the two different chassis is the 4-stroke, it seems to be a lot more consistent, just going from longer runs with the LO206 motor. The biggest thing that, I think it has over the 401 chassis is that when you think of a 206 motor, there's a lot of weight on one side of the kart because the engine's pretty heavy, and it's a slow motor, so you really need to get off that corner and be as free as you possibly can. While I will say that the 401 chassis is very competitive as a 206 motor, and we use that for a long time, I do think there is an edge on the 4-stroke specific, and it's the STV 450 chassis. So you can get those in all of the brands as well. They sell the Tony Kart, Esprit, Cosmic, Red Speed, whatever brand they have them. But we've really been diving into the testing of that chassis since March, I want to say, and getting it narrowed down. And just this last weekend, I had a couple of senior drivers out there, Steven Iser and Dylan Albiani, and working with those things. Both of them very happy with the chassis as we're working on them with a very neutral setup as well, which is something that I'm really happy about. It's always good when you can go out there and have somewhat of a base setup and you're not doing anything crazy to make it work, and you're going out there fast. I mean, in the main event, unfortunately, Dylan had to start last, but he made his way through the pack and went from 22nd to 4th, and had a fast lap by over 0.2 of a second. So it's telling us that chassis is working really well.
Good. Is that a 30 millimeter car?
It is a 30 mil, yes. So overall, it's very similar to the 401. When I'm doing my measurements, everything is very similar. It comes with a 50 mil axle. One of the things that we've been doing that has found a lot of progress, and which will be on one of the next chassis to come out, is the shortened wheelbase. I think that's pretty important on the 206 stuff. But other than that, the other biggest thing is mainly just the rear crossbar is straight instead of that slanted manner that you have on the 401R.
Well, I've never really thought about what that does to the cart. Have you guys got any suggestions what that straight bar does as opposed to the angled bar?
I think it has to do mainly with just the weight distribution. So like I said, you have the 206 motor on one side, so naturally you have to put the seat pretty far over to the brake side. And if you have a slant in the middle of the chassis like that, it's going to work one side. One side's going to be a little bit more stable than the other side. So I think that is why mainly it's more consistent and not as favored on one side versus the other.
That 4-stroke chassis that we got here is very similar to a kart we used to use for KT100 racing in the 2000s when it was the Yamaha engine was still popular here in Australia, and it was pretty successful.
Yeah, that's actually one thing I've been thinking about is for these lower horsepower classes like the Yamaha or the KA100 is I wonder how well it would work on those. I know a lot of the other brands that are 4-stroke specific, they're 28 millimeter chassis, and it's meant for 4-stroke. But the 30 mil chassis, I've found a couple of advantages with that 30 mil. So I'm excited as we do a little bit more testing and more clarity with the chassis to see what that brings. But already we've seen a lot of good progress with it.
All right. Thanks, guys. So while we've been talking about this, we have been flooded with Power Republic. Our friend Gear Nuts, Power Republic, thank you so much for putting out content on your channel. Very detailed, helped us a bunch. And then we also have Eric Doan Racing. Shout out Eric Doan. Power Republic's mini rock videos and OTK chassis videos. More, please. So what I'm gathering is you're going to give us a shout out at the end of the show, right? Kenneth McKay, I also watch Doctor. So very popular. Put your questions in the comments. So next question, what is the OTK frame lifespan? Great question.
Mike?
Who's driving the cart?
Yeah.
I mean, that question is we get asked that all the time because I think that there is an idea that the chassis don't last as long as they actually do. And I know that, I've spent a lot of time with Rawlison Performance Group over the last 10 years, and we do cycle through the chassis fairly often. But in the last 2 or 3 years, we've been holding on to them quite a bit longer than we had prior to that. And the carts are just good. They seem to stay really good for many, let's say 4 to 5 big national events where you're putting 4 hard hours on the chassis a weekend. And then we might retire a chassis at that point, send it off to, run 4-cycle racing. And we're running those chassis at a club level with a 4-cycle or a KA100 for another couple of years. So it really all depends on how abusive the track you're on, the tire that you're running, the weight of the driver, whether it's a national series or club level racing.
Austin,
Agreed.
maybe you can kind of chime in about like the Norcal experience with this question.
So from what I've gathered, if you're talking about 206, the chassis, sometimes I feel like they get better as they get older. I've had some very old chassis come through with welds on them, and have clearly been through the ringer, going out there and winning the Grand Nationals. We did that last year on Steven Eisert. Dominated the whole event, and his chassis has like 5 welds on the thing. It's just been through the ringer. When you're competing at the top level, you're talking about Pro Tour or the Super Nats or any of those bigger events, you're probably looking at, you would want to get rid of it somewhere around the 5 race mark. And that's strictly because, over the course of those races, it does lose a little bit of its edge. It's not very much, but when you're at an event, you're looking for hundredths of a second, it can make a difference. Now, when you're at the local level, it can definitely last a lot longer. I mean, again, to Mike's point, depending on the track, if it's a very bumpy, tight, you're mashing curbs, it's not going to last as long. I mean, just like any other chassis. But when you're at the national level, a lot of the times those tracks are pretty smooth, so it'll last a little bit longer.
All right, thanks, Austin.
My chassis seem to last forever because I have to buy them. It's the kids' chassis seem to wear out the quickest because their dads just buy them another one anyway. So if you're paying for your own car, maybe stay off the curbs.
Yes.
I could certainly say that, like Mike said, there's been some talk about OTK chassis not lasting as long as others in the past. Like, it's crazy. I mean, the chassis are made of similar materials as other manufacturers. So how you take care of the chassis is going to be a huge factor in how long it lasts. And the reason why at a national level, maybe we get rid of a chassis after 5 races and sell it to be used in another life at the club level or a regional level is simply because you can't afford a failure at a national level. It's not because it can't be competitive. You just,
Good point.
you use the chassis, you sell the chassis. It's just a cycle of life.
Yeah.
But the chassis is still good for sure for years to come.
Yeah, and you get the best out of it when it's brand new anyway. So, the bearings are new, the brakes are new, everything's new.
Exactly.
And you're trying to win like a major event. So why go in there with gear that's questionable?
Exactly. We're dealing with open bearings with no seals to reduce drag. Well, of course, there's going to be dirt introduced. There's going to be drag that's going to build over time.
Yeah.
So, of course, when it's brand new, sure, it's fresher. But like Austin said, you can use one of these chassis for years and years and years, especially at the 206 level. It's not a problem.
Yeah.
Did you guys see the kart class video with Danny Formel that came out over the weekend?
I did not.
It's pretty much every epic curb job he's done.
If anybody knows how to use curbs, it's Danny Formel.
It's Danny.
Chassis every race.
Yeah, I think that just goes right back to your point. It's like, who's driving it? How's the track? And how abusive do you want to be?
Yeah, if it's a Super Nats with a chicane section with like 10-foot tall concrete curbs, it might be a little hard on the chassis.
Yeah. But you got to win, baby. You got to win.
Hey, anything for that last hundredth of a second, right?
Oh, yeah, baby. Tell my mother for that.
Well, and you guys brought up the Sonoma track and, the big brake rotors earlier in the conversation. And they've addressed that where they've reconfigured tic-tac-toe for that reason because guys were flying over the curbs. And I don't know, if you did it right, the carts lasted a little bit longer. If you did it wrong, you're buying brake rotors and you're grinding down the frames. So, and that applies to any chassis, not just OTK.
Do you guys ever run the chassis protection, like the little plastic plates you can screw on there underneath the belly of the cart near the fuel tank?
So the 4-stroke chassis, the STV 450, actually comes with the big brake rotor, and it's the older style of brake calipers. With that, it does come with that protection back there. So it's a bracket that goes from the cassette and drops down, and then there's a plastic piece that wraps around the bottom of the frame. And it's definitely lower than the big rotor. it definitely gets used from what I've seen. Unless you're sliding across a curb and going sideways and you end up bending the thing outwards, it tends to work really well.
Yeah, you got a shout out from Daryl Doan. Austin is real good at straightening the chassis.
Yeah, boy.
Inspiring be Tiago. Tiago knows what he's doing. That guy.
Yeah.
He's magic when it comes to that.
All right. So we do have a beginner question, it looks like. So my kid is starting out in shifter carts. Any recommendation for sticky, durable tires for practice? How long should tires last on a shifter for practice?
Well,
Go
that's
ahead,
a bit of
Cliff or
a
Mike.
that's a bit of an oxymoron. Sticky and durable. It's tough to find a balance, right?
Yeah.
I don't know what track you're at, Kenneth. The track is going to be a huge factor there. If you're in Phoenix or in Utah, where Mike and I are from, unfortunately, we're both shifter cart drivers at very high consumption tracks. So we don't get much out of our tires, even if you're running on a medium compound. Some tracks are a lot more fortunate to get laps out of the tires. In Sonoma, where Austin's from, you can get quite a bit more laps out of the tires. So, I mean, this is an OTK conversation, obviously, and a new tire, like Dr. Power said, they call LeConte in his area, but Levanto is a happy medium. It's not the fastest tire, but it does last, and it's got a good sidewall. Invenco Red is a good fast tire, but I think it fades a little bit faster in my experience, which is limited as a driver. But you just got to find a tire that's being used in your area and make it work. Tune your chassis to try to find that balance. And sometimes you just have to drive to the pace of the tire too. Like in Phoenix, when it's in the summer, we have to slow down. You drive as fast as you can to not melt the tires, and that's it. So,
Yeah,
You wanna add to that, Mike?
I would agree with Cliff on the tire. I think the Levanto is a great shifter cart tire, especially for somebody who needs to go out and just pound laps and get acquainted with the go-kart. You can turn a lot of laps with the Levanto. They seem to wear really well, and they don't have as big of a drop off as some of the other brands. And so I really like that tire. I like driving the Invenco Red as well, which would be an MG Yellow also. That's a great tire, especially with the new homologation on that tire. We get a little bit more time out of them than what we did in the past, but you're still not going to get as much time on that tire as you would the Levanto.
And then before we move on from that question, if you're listening, maybe chime in to which track you're at and what tire you're currently using, because we have a pretty varied panel here.
I was gonna say, Austin, maybe you can comment from NorCal experience, just in case he's in NorCal, and then we'll go to the next question.
So for NorCal, I mean, you have Sonoma, right? And that is a very smooth track. It's a little bit fast paced, and Levanto works fantastic there. I mean, that's what they run. They have a contract with them, so it's a very good tire for that. If you're in NorCal, I would say that the biggest thing is mainly there's a lot of tight tracks here. I mean, I'd have to agree with everybody else. The Levanto tire, in my opinion, is just spot on. But you also have to think about what kind of shifter cart you're racing too. So here there's a little bit of a following for the 80 shifters, and that's about as fast as a tag cart. And I believe that they run on the Vinco Blue, and they run just fine. So, it depends on what kind of package you have as well. I mean, if you're laying down something with a rock shifter that's got a lot of power, you're going to need something more like a Levanto. But if it's a shifter limited or an 80cc shifter, you can get away with an Vinco Blue. But yeah, I think the Levanto is spot on.
And then, Mike, maybe you can answer this one. Didn't it in Utah a couple of years ago? I'm probably aging myself. Didn't you guys experiment with the 125s on the harder MG or the Evenco?
Yeah, we did that for a long time, actually. So this dates back to 2005, 2006, and so you are correct. We ran the MG Red back then when it was the hard compound before it was homologated, and so and I felt that there were a lot of really good lessons that were learned. Obviously, the guys who are going to buy a new set of tires every weekend are still going to buy a new set of tires, whether it's a hard tire or a soft tire. That's never going to change.
Agreed.
But what it did was it gave drivers the opportunity to run 3 race weekends on a set of hard tires and not have cord hanging out of them. And so it for a more of a budget-minded racer, it was really helpful. And what we found with that is we could definitely, one of the fastest shifter cart times that's ever been set in Utah, or the fastest stock moto time was on a hard tire, even compared to the softer MG Yellow. The fastest time was on a hard tire, and you can make a go-kart get the grip, if you know how to set it up. And we were able to take what we learned on that hard tire and translate that to street racing events, Super Nationals, where we would struggle to find grip on a parking lot circuit. We would have a pretty good idea, in the beginning of the weekend, which way we needed to go on the setup, because we were running low grip stuff so often as it was. Now, conversely, it hurt us when we went to events that where the track really rubbered in. It took more time for us to get up to speed at those events.
All right, thanks. Another question we have about tires is, MXCs. Okay, can we talk wheels? MXCs versus MXJs, etc. It seems like the MXCs are always up front regardless of the chassis brand.
Well, how hot is it outside?
It's pretty dang hard to beat an MXC.
Yeah, if it's 80 degrees or more, just put the seats on. Like, if you're going to ask a question, just put them on. It's almost always better. If it's cooler, then we have to start tuning.
I think the biggest thing,
put them on,
is that they're just more consistent. They're easier for a driver to drive it, and it disperses the heat better.
Yeah, I mean, there's been a lot of brands that have tried to copy that wheel. I know Douglas spent some time trying to copy that wheel, and Swift has got a very similar wheel. But however Tony Kart's come up with that ultra pure magnesium it's not so brittle that it just doesn't break all the time, because they are a very durable wheel. Whatever practice they use in developing that wheel, I mean, nobody else has been able to figure it out, and they're by far the best.
So, Derek, being that you're down in Australia, do you guys have the same controversy down there with the MXCs versus MXJs or any other tire and what should be on the cart?
For wheels, it's pretty much universal MXC. Entry-level guys can get away with the MXJs because it comes with the go-kart, but a lot of guys even just trade them in, just pay the difference to get an MXC upgrade straight from brand new. That's how popular they are in all the tag, road tax, and KZ frame chassis, KZ racing here in Australia, which is the shifter carts. So basically everyone's running MXC. There's the odd sort of rogue that will try the MXQ wheel, but they don't sell so good. So it's a bit tough as a retailer to even stock them. They just sit on the shelf for ages. Whereas the MXCs, we always... Yeah, MXQ as well.
What is that?
It's a low volume MXC. So it's the same sort of magnesium, and it's fully machined both sides, same as the MXC. It's just the profile's different. Actually, Jace, it's a great segue to one of our videos on Tony Kart wheels. But yeah,
well,
Right.
we do have a question for you if you want to segue.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so we have I always see you running a great cadet program. How much testing have you done with seats, soft, stiff, and different brands?
Most of my drivers, we do have a lot of cadet drivers, but they're all pretty new to the game. We just stick with the standard Tony Kart seat. I think I could put the seat in upside down or backwards and it wouldn't change the outcome. They'll still crash into each other at this stage. Maybe the better drivers, you could play around like generally, if it's super grippy conditions, we'll go to a softer seat to try to, you let the car bend a little. Or if it's super cold, we'll go to maybe a harder seat or a stiffer seat. Sometimes the kids like the Jekko seats because they look cool, and also too they can wrap around their legs and make them a bit more comfortable. But whether it makes them drive any faster, yeah, I haven't noticed. So I mean, it's probably a good idea to have a soft seat and a hard seat, whichever brand, and have them both set up. You could use that fast adjuster system, which is pretty good for moving the seat forward and back without drilling 1,000 holes in them. Otherwise, yeah, just put them in like you would normally and have one of each and test them out. As a general rule of thumb, I don't know about you other guys, but yeah, if you probably a softer seat when it's hotter and stickier, and a harder seat when it's colder and slipperier. That's as a rule of thumb. That's all I would generally use.
All right. Anybody else? Austin, maybe you want to comment? Seats.
Well, I mean, it really depends on the condition, I think. I mean, there's been races we've gone to where, we want to test a seat, and so we go from stiff to soft or soft to stiff, and, it's just they work a little bit differently. And I've noticed that from tight tracks to long tracks, there's a difference there. But I think that he's pretty spot on with what he said. It's a lot of it comes down to the driver preference. And even the same could be said about the MXJ wheel, as that I know I have seen drivers go out there and pretty much win races on an MXJ when everybody else in the field has an MXC or there's a ton of grip out there. I think a lot of it is just driver preference and what makes them more comfortable.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you. And Mateo Sandoval is giving you a shout out there.
He says you're hot, bro.
Yeah, that real Austin is
10 out of
so
10.
handsome.
Oh, Mateo. Thanks, buddy. Appreciate
Yes.
Bro, love.
All right. So we did have a question. I think it was wheels, and then we'll go to this one at the bottom. Let's do this one. Let's see if we can do this quick. I bought 7-inch wheels, and I'm running 6-inch Evenco Blues on the rear of my LO206 CGR cart. Pros and cons of doing this.
All right, this is the OTK show, not the CRG show.
Oh.
But we'll let you
Oh,
guys answer
damn.
this question anyhow.
Get that out of here.
So, Philip, you're going to have to buy MXCs
Yes.
from one of these gentlemen here, from Austin if you're in NorCal, for those
Yeah.
7-inch MXCs if they're available. Go ahead, Austin. 6-inch wide versus 7-inch wide.
So
Or
one
180s
thing I
versus
will say is
210s.
that it changes the gear ratio. So if you're doing this test, be sure to change your ratio with it. So when you go from a 6-inch wheel to a 7-inch wheel, you're going to have to drop the gear a little bit. It's like when you go to the 7-inch wheel, it's essentially gives you more gear. So you have to account for that part of it. One thing I've noticed is that the 6-inch rim versus the 7, the 6-inch has a little bit more grip going in and a little less grip coming out. The 7-inch rim is a little freer going in, so you could have a little bit more rotation. But coming out, it's gonna want to be a little bit more planted.
All right, thanks, Austin. Let's do one last question, and then we'll start doing final thoughts and shout outs, okay?
Oh, we can't cut them off yet. The questions are coming
So
up.
Rookie chassis. Any comments on the narrow rear axle and small hubs? Best to run them narrower as they come, or do you do things to get them wider?
Let's see. Rookie chassis. Any comments on the narrow rear axle and small hubs? Best to run them narrower as they. Oh, okay. So yeah, our cadet guys can answer that. So out of the box, you can only maintain a certain width. So do you guys try to go beyond that, or what is your basic rookie chassis setup? Rob, what tire are you running?
Yeah.
I can start because we run them a lot here, and almost straight out the box, that EVS screen that came out this year with the green NASA panels being the bomb. And you can run it 5 mil in off the axle to start with. If it's super slippery, you could run them in about 10 mil off the inside the axle. And it was really, really grippy. You could go a little wider out to flush. Look for understeer or oversteer, or, if the cart's bound up. But if you go too wide, it can actually make the cart understeer, which is a bit strange. That's one of the things I probably saw on a couple of the kids. So we don't try to go too wide in the rear on the little rookie chassis.
So when you're saying flush, you're talking about the edge of the hub with the edge of the axle.
That's correct.
Just to clarify. Okay.
Sorry. It's probably pretty critical to think about what tire you're running versus what the people in America are running, though. Because in America, we use a significantly different tire for cadet than the rest of the world.
Yeah, sure. Well, ours are really sticky. We used to have a Bridgestone, and this year we've got a Maxxis that's sort of faster again. So I'd assume it's a stickier compound because it's going about a half, 3/4 of a second quicker than last year's tyres. So it's a stickier compound tyre. The small front.
Same. Yeah, you guys use the small front with the larger rear, like a 145 rear.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah. So it might not be the same for you guys
here in the US. We use pretty much a 130 front and rear, same tire, front and rear. So the setup
won't be the same.
Tends to be a little bit different.
Rob is running a Mojo D2.
Yeah.
Mojo.
And Austin, what are they running in like micro and mini now for rock? Are they running the KRT?
Mainly they're running the Vinco blue tire. I mean, unless you're in the rock category.
Yeah, so a Vinco blue, and then but in in Rock Cup they run the KRT tire all the way around the fronts, or no?
Yeah.
Okay, so medium compound tire there. So I guess a Mojo D2 is, where's that fall, Mike?
It's been a long time since I've been on the D2. It would fall somewhere in between, I would say, a current Evinco blue and Levanto. It's going to be somewhere in that range.
So a medium hard compound.
Yeah.
It's a Rotax tire, isn't it? Over here.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yep.
Yeah.
That particular tire, yeah. Yeah, that's the difficulty, Rob, is that everywhere in the world is using such drastically different tires. So you have to experiment a lot in cadet, unfortunately. And what works in Australia on that tire versus what they're using in Norcal, and everything can be quite a bit different. So cadet
disregard what I said totally, yeah.
No, not disregard, but just like everything is different. So it's hard. Yeah, everything can be so different depending on what tire you're on. So you have to just take every challenge objectively.
And I think it's really important when you're looking for this type of information at your local club circuit is to, pay a lot of attention to what those who are going quick are doing. And that's how I would base my opinion or set up initially to start with, because so often the young drivers, they can't give you the feedback that you need. And so you have to really read the tire and be able to pick it up real quick on what's going on.
Which on a hard tire can be hard. It's hard to read a hard tire. Yeah. So like Mike said, be observant, like see what works, try it. Don't even necessarily ask questions, just observe and try.
So since we're talking about the cadet or the rookie, the Mojo D2, can you guys throw out a couple baseline tire pressures? Just so, Rob has an idea before he starts messing with widths and all that fun stuff or ride height. What about tire pressure? Just a good, okay, start there. This will get you on track.
I would probably say something like 15 pounds hot.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
pretty neutral.
12 cold.
Yeah, you're going
12
to
to
need
14.
close to 15 to activate that rubber on a medium compound tire like that, the low weight. But temperature is going to be your critical thing too, Jason. Like, obviously, you're not going to watch live. Well, yeah, Phoenix, we have no problem with the temperature. But you might have in NorCal, you might have some tracks like Austin was saying, the smaller technical tracks. Maybe you don't build as much temperature sometimes.
All right, so let's talk. Since we're talking about this, we are at an hour, so if we can do this quickly, please. But let's talk about the stock setup, the where to start, tuning basics. What do I do when I get a Tony kart?
So I think what Ashley's referring to is All Stock Sunday.
Yep.
All stock Sunday. Yep.
Yeah, baby.
Yeah.
All the way.
Basically, it's with Tony Kart, one of the beautiful things about it is that it's an incredibly consistent go-kart, and where it comes out of the box stock setup is a very good base. I mean, you can't really go wrong with it. As the track changes, if the driver is able to change their driving with the track, that stock setup is pretty much going to work 9 times out of 10. As Cliff was saying, box stock Sunday is, you could do whatever you want on the practice day and going through the weekend, but more times than not, you're gonna end up back to stock by the main event. So
let's run down the three major chassis and classifications. And Ashley's flashing me with the times.
No, I'm not. I'm saying 3.
Oh, 3.
Ahead,
okay, so we'll do KZ. Being that it's OTK product, we'll stick with the Vortex package and the Levanto tire. Then we'll run down to, might as well mix it up, do a tag, the 401, and then put that on the Evenco product, and then the rookie setup. So it's like if someone has a new kart, starting with the rookie, what axle should be in it, and then you guys already talked about the wheel hubs. If you missed it, rewind 10 minutes. So we'll let Derek and Austin tackle those two, being the rookie.
You go first, Austin.
I was going to give the floor to you, man.
Right.
Yeah, we use the standard O axle that comes with the rookie kart. Bring the rear wheels in about 5 millimeters off the end of the axle. And then with the camber, just take some of the positive out because the new EBS comes with so much positive camber from standard. We just turn the top caster bill 90 degrees just to make the camber back to neutral, and about 25 millimeter spaces in the front, 550 millimeters for the seat back from the front of the car, depending on the driver. And just send that, and it works pretty much. Yeah, like you said, standard out of the box. We do deviate from it a couple of times, but we end up back there 9 times out of 10. The new frame's been excellent here in Australia this year. It's winning a lot of races. The guys are really fast. Get yourself one of those. I think even on that D2 tyre, I would start there anyway, and then just modify the car. Try to look for your problem, and then apply a solution. If you've got understeer, address your camber. If you've got some sort of hopping in the rear or instability under brakes or the way into a corner, address your rear axle. And look for your problems and apply basic solutions, tire pressures, a little bit of wheel widths. If you're only new to the Tony Kart brand, and it should get you out of, like I said, 9 out of 10 problems.
So I know for the full size kart, I mean, like I was saying, it's pretty much box stock is a pretty good consistent setup. With the front end widths, you're either at 2 small spacers or 1 big spacer. The rear end, you can suck it in the morning. Maybe at most 5mm, just to give it a little bit more rear end grip going in. As far as the seat goes, a good measurement is even with the bottom of the frame, and from the kingpin to the top of the seat is 105 centimeters.
And what axle?
An axle.
And as a Nancy?
On occasion, we'll go to a Q for the tighter tracks, or if it's not as grippy outside. And then on other occasions, we'll go to an A axle. The A is just a little bit stiffer than the N, and on rare occasions, we'll go to an H axle too. But it's a pretty base setup. Play with the caster a little bit if you feel like you need a little more front end and rotation going to the corners. If the front end's plowing, or it's very small stuff.
All right. Anyone else? Cliff?
I mean, again, that's once the track comes in, you're going to end up back on the N axle. You're going to end up with neutral front ends, and that's why the chassis are popular, because if you put the chassis stock setup and the track is not green or greasy or dirty from wind, you're going to be within competitive lap time. So even in the shifter, we use N-axle a ton, probably more so than any other manufacturer I can think of. We're on the standard setup. Like Austin said, some tracks we might use Q, try to get a little bit more, chassis to come in quicker, or a little bit more forgiving over bumps. But once the track is good, once the track is in condition, the stock setup is going to work quite nice. Shifter, of course, we tend to run 115 hub versus 92, but that's not always the case either. I mean, a lot of times if the track is well enough, 92 hub is perfectly fine grip level as well. So you don't have to go crazy. If you're lost, put it back to stock. Put it back to stock. Always. If you're lost,
Agreed.
Put it back. So
All right, Mike.
Why are people running Tony Kart and paying for tuners then?
Shut up, Jason.
Hey, I need a job. So
Hold on. I'm gonna mute him. I'm in a sec.
I think it comes in the small, tiny details that we see. You see something wrong, you can correct it before it causes a failure. I mean, that's where the value comes in, and track support. I don't think any of us go to the track and say, we're going to make magic for you, because honestly, the driver has to make the magic. This is why karting is awesome, right? Yeah, the driver has to do it. You can make the fastest chassis in the world, but if the driver doesn't drive, you're not going to win.
But I will say it does make our job easier being on the OTK. It's pretty much back to stock. Sure. Hey, dude, you just got to drive it.
Yeah, exactly. Because look, your teammate is kicking your butt. He is on the N axle. He has standard front end. The arrows are both facing forward on the caster camber. Like, just go drive, right? Like, go drive. So,
what do you want to add to that, Mike?
Well, I mean, what Cliff said about the shifter chassis setup, I agree with. I think the shifter chassis has gotten a little bit of a bad rap over the last 10 years and hasn't been as popular as some of the other brands. And I think a lot of that was because of the brakes. For many years, perhaps were not powerful enough. But since 2015, the brakes on the OTK shifter stuff have just been absolutely amazing. And
maybe too powerful.
Oftentimes too powerful. Yeah. And so it, in my opinion, brakes are such a huge factor in the shifter kart category that, it's something to pay attention to. And I absolutely love the brakes right now and couldn't be happier with them. And, as far as the rest of the setup goes, pretty dang standard up front. We typically start with a flat bar up front, which is the stock bar. Eventually, we'll try a chrome round bar up front, maybe a little bit 5 to 10 millimeters wider on the front width, but for the most part, pretty standard in the rear, and don't deviate very much off of that.
And that's probably just as the tires wear as well, right, Mike? I mean,
Absolutely, yeah.
When you put the new tires, you dial a little bit more front back out of it, and just go put laps down. Like, just go do it.
Yeah. Yep. And then at the club level, I mean, I think it's really important, for, when a cart leaves our shop that we've just prepped or for a new driver, I mean, that setup that we put on that go-kart, it is a very, very stock setup. And as long as the driver sticks with that stock setup, they are going to be within the 90 to 95% range in most conditions. And so I can't say enough good things about what Tony Kart's been able to do and develop a go-kart that, we in Utah here in the spring, we've got mornings where the track temperature is 30 degrees and it might be snowing. And that box stock setup works extremely well in that condition. And then today we had temperatures of 100 degrees with 140 degree track temperature. And the box stock setup worked very well in those conditions as well. So
it's impressive, honestly.
It really is, yeah.
So Mike, hold that thought for one moment.
Okay.
Since I don't think we gave you much screen time tonight. Give me one moment here.
No. I don't know I know what's about to come up, and we don't need any of that.
Oh
no.
Tight or loose? I don't know, baby.
Cosmopolitan. Some of us remember this.
Most of us shouldn't remember it, though.
Good on you, Marky.
That's pretty.
Cliff remembers this.
It says there 50 versus 40, but the real question is for Bonner on the 32, because he always likes the big ladies.
Yeah.
He's always running that 32.
Yeah, that big tube.
Yeah.
Leave it to my buddy Jason to bring up the past.
Yeah, I always love this because of just how humble you are. Like, you're a good looking dude. But it always just when this conversation comes up, it always makes you so uncomfortable. So sorry, I had to.
It's a funny story on that. I got tricked into that photo by my best buddy, and it's something that it comes up fairly frequently. Somebody will find that photo online and have to ask me all the questions on how that came about.
Well, tell the story. That'll wrap up your segment. Tell the story.
Yeah.
So in 2003, we were at the Pro Moto Tour race down in Texas, and I didn't have a mechanic, and Bonner Moulton said, well, I'll help you for the weekend, but you have to help me with the magazine. And the magazine at that time was Kart Sport, which was one of the coolest karting magazines I've ever seen.
By far.
And so I would have done anything to help Kart Sport out. I absolutely loved everyone involved with that project. And I said, yeah, I'll help. No problem. And so I'd been running in third place at that event, and I clipped a barrier with the right front. It sucked me in and ended the race. And it was hot and miserable. And as I was walking back to the pits with my bent go-kart, I saw Bonner walking towards me with a camera. And at that point, I knew I was in trouble. And so he said, all right, take your shirt off, zip down that suit, go stand over here. And he starts shooting pictures. And you can see the uncomfortable look on my face. And I'm still uncomfortable about it. And they were going to use this. Apparently at the time, they'd gotten some feedback on the magazine that they were too many scantily clad ladies in the magazine. And so they wanted to change that up a bit. And fortunately, this never went to print. Fortunately, I say. And but still, it still pops up from time to time.
All right.
Awesome.
Well, that was Mike Beeny, everyone.
Yeah, Mike.
Just disregard what you've seen.
All right.
pretty
Do
good
you
one.
have any final thoughts or shout outs, Mike, before we go?
just I appreciate the opportunity to be on and the show and want to let everyone know how much I love the OTK product, and we wouldn't be selling it for 22 years if we didn't think it was the best.
All right. Thanks, Mike.
Thank you.
Okay, Cliff, go ahead and give us your final thoughts, shout outs, plug your team.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks, Jason. Thanks, Ashley, for hosting us. This has been a great time talking about this brand that we're all so loyal to, in part because it's, like Austin said, it's a great product to sell, because it's a joy to work on. So, yeah, I mean, anybody that's interested in making a switch, I don't think you can go wrong. Whether you're picking up a used chassis, new chassis, 4-cycle specific chassis, something, that you pick up from one of the race teams that's, just used it for a few times, give it a try. I think you'll all be happy. So.
All right. Thanks, Cliff.
Thank you, Cliff.
Well, let's let Cliff go inside because it's hot in Phoenix. All right, Cliff, we'll see you later. Mike, we'll see you later as well.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
Have a good night. All right, next up we'll do who wants to go next? Austin, you can finish us or you can start. It's up to you.
Yeah, I'll go. Thanks everybody for
go
watching. If you're still tuned in an hour and a half later or whatever. Thanks, Jace, for the chat again. It's been good talking to all the Tony Kart dealers. Hopefully one day we can all hook up at a track and duke it out.
keep the YouTube stuff going.
Yeah, we've been a bit flat on that, just a little time pause. So yeah, hopefully in the second half of this year we'll be able to step it up again.
All right, thanks, Derek.
Thank you, Derek.
Later.
All right, sir. Our co-host for the evening, Austin the GOAT, according to Steven Iser.
Yeah, no, thanks guys for having us on here. It was cool to have a video dedicated to the OTK brand and kind of just talking about setups or the different chassis. I think that's something that people aren't aware of, that I've definitely heard. But as we kind of stated tonight, it's a pretty good, consistent chassis. And as Mike and Cliff had said, if you guys haven't tried one, I mean, I haven't had somebody go around and test carts and get in an OTK chassis and say, "Oh, I don't like this." It's more times than not, it's a very positive feedback that they get when they first drive one. So it doesn't hurt to try one. But yeah, I mean, we're here in Norcal. We're testing, especially on that 4-stroke chassis, and getting that thing up to speed and getting ready for the Grand Nationals coming up here in a couple of months. So, but overall, thanks for having the video.
No problem.
Right.
Since you sponsored the show tonight, plug your company again, your website, your social media channels, all that good stuff. And where's your shirt?
So it's I just got back from the racing weekend, so all my shirts were dirty. I couldn't wear them. Couldn't make it happen. I was at the shop all day today, so I didn't have time to wash them and get them back over here. So we're going casual today.
All right. See, if I did that, I get yelled at.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Speedsense Motorsports, and you can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and we do have a website. If you go on any of those and type in Speedsense Motorsports, you will find it. So, but yeah, we support mainly the OTK brands, and that's that.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us. Thanks for bringing everyone together. We'll see you in a minute. Jason, I'm going to do you next, and then I will close.
You'll wrap up our show. Perfect. Thank you, everyone, for joining us tonight. OTK, we had a lot of great questions coming in. So if you'd like to have a chassis spotlight, reach out to us. And just to recap from the beginning of the show, this weekend, Prairie City Karting 4-stroke race weekend, Northern Nevada Kart Club, they're going to be doing a live stream. That's nnkcreno.com. July 30th, we will be at Rock Sonoma, Ashley and I. We will be live streaming on YouTube. You can find the races on YouTube under the Rock Sonoma channel. And August 13th, NCK Road Racing will be heading to Buttonwillow. So August 13th, that's a Saturday. NCK Road Racers, they are heading to Buttonwillow for the big track. And just remember, if we all get one person in karting, we'll double by next year.
All right, so closing, let's talk about the upcoming show lineup. Next weekend, we are going to have our Girl Drivers show. And let me tell you, we got some queens coming on next week. So that's coming up. Masters, I've only heard from 2 of you guys. Let me tell you how the juniors do it. We have them on a standby list now. If you are a junior and you want to be on our show, you have to wait to be on our show. So yes, it's my birthday tomorrow. And then we have junior, so masters, get on the list, let me know, putting that show together. And then we got our juniors coming up. So if you want to talk about karting, come on my show. Peace, NorCal.